to Sugar Coated. I'm your host, Adrienne Garland, the CEO and founder of She Leads Media. For far too long, women have been conditioned to sugarcoat their words, their actions, and the way they show up in the world, and to conform to certain cultural norms and ideals. This is inherently designed to keep those who are outside of the norm from gaining power, prestige, wealth, and influence, preventing more women from being recognized and respected as the powerful leaders that we truly are. Join me each week as we dive into raw conversations with remarkable, uncompromising, and inspirational women that will encourage you to strip away your sugarcoating and move boldly in the direction of your magnificent dreams. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Sugar Coated. I am so excited today to welcome my guest. Her name is Kathrin Folkendt, and she's the CEO of Femtech Insider. And it is an online publication that's all about women's health and technology. So I am so excited to have a conversation all about everything that, women need when it comes to health, when it comes to wellness. I love what it is that you're doing. So welcome to Sugar Coated, Kathrin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and really looking forward to our conversation right now.
Me too. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? I know you had some health issues that sort of prompted the starting of Femtech Insider. So can you just walk us back and talk a little bit about the origin story?
Sure. So my background is really in tech. I've pretty much spent my entire career working for tech companies of all kinds of different shapes and sizes, from very small startups to very big corporates. And so I've held various different roles across product, communications, marketing, this kind of stuff in Europe and also in Silicon Valley for a while. So when I was in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with a condition called PCOS. So that stands for polycystic ovary syndrome. And it's actually somewhat common. So it affects around 1 in 10 women. It's the most common cause for infertility among women of reproductive age. And yeah, again, 1 in 10 women, yet only 50% of women with PCOS are actually diagnosed. And I was one of these women that was not diagnosed until her early 30s. PCOS is a hormonal condition, somewhat common, but not that easy to spot because the symptoms really vary from woman to woman. If you're interested, we can go a little bit more into the condition. So essentially what happened with me was I was diagnosed in my 30s and I was kind of shocked because I was like, well, I'm a woman that actually cares about her health. I work out, I eat well, I try to do everything I can to really, have a healthy body, have a healthy mind, and just really a healthy life. And yet this was missed. And what happened with me, so one of the somewhat a little bit uncomfortable symptoms of PCOS is that for me it was, kind of the cosmetic issues. So acne, male pattern hair growth, then hair loss and balding. And so, I actually was going to get laser hair removal done. And I found a flyer in my beautician's office that said, well, this is not going to work for you if you have a condition like hirsutism, PCOS, thyroid conditions, hormonal imbalances. And I was like, I've never heard of any of these things, right? So, and I started to read and Google on my phone. And I was like, I saw the symptoms and I'm like, oh my God, I have PCOS. And so literally I took that flyer, I walked into my OBGYN's office at the time. And I'm like, look, you need to test me for this. I'm like 90% sure I have PCOS. Yeah. And so that's how I got a diagnosis. So although I had all these symptoms that I've been struggling with literally my entire adult life, it was missed. And so again, I'm a white woman from Central Europe that was very privileged. I worked in tech at the time, right? So I've always had access to really, really good healthcare. Yet my healthcare providers missed PCOS in me and I struggled for decades, literally. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got into the women's health field. And basically, I struggled with that diagnosis for a while. I spent about a year feeling sorry for myself before I was sort of in a position to actually really tackle it and, kind of do something productive about it. So as I was reaching out to other women for support in online support groups, I, learned that the experience that I had is actually not an exception. It's more like the rule. And I just thought, oh my God, women's health, this is so broken, right?
Yes.
I just really kind of, did a deep dive and sort of it's like a rabbit hole, right? You start, you I'll obviously learn about PCOS because it affected me directly. Then, you venture out into endometriosis, menopause, fertility issues. And it's such a broad and frankly fascinating field. And there's so much work to be done. So having that background in the tech space, I was like, what role does innovation play in this? Then I kind of looked out and I stumbled upon Femtech. So Femtech is kind of a term that we use to broadly describe anything that's women's health innovation.
Yeah.
So my background in tech was in fintech, so more on the financial side, and also software as a services, so productivity software. And all of these verticals had so many publications dedicated to them, right? Like everybody was writing about innovation in these spaces. And I was just really flabbergasted that nobody was speaking about women's health with this innovation angle. And so this is really how Femtech Insider came about and how I stumbled into this space.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love the idea of entrepreneurship and solving a problem that's very personal, because that's the thing that I think keeps us going when things get tough. When did you launch Femtech Insider?
So we have our 4-year anniversary this October. So
congratulations.
the first newsletter. So we're really known for our newsletter that summarizes all the news in the space on a weekly basis. And the first newsletter, I think, went out on October 1st, 2019. And we've been around ever since. And I've learned so much ever since. I really started this as a patient with obviously no medical background. And I was really just driven by, that need that, to create this. And from the very beginning, I just felt this needed to exist. And if it wasn't there, then I had to build it. And so then obviously I learned a lot from our audience, sort of built together with them really. And, it's I like to think of myself as a servant leader in this space. And, I couldn't do what I do without all the other amazing women that are building in the women's health space. And, we're really in this together, driven by our joint mission to bring change to women's health. Yeah, it's really what you said earlier. The why is what drives us, and really also what carries us, what carries me through the times when maybe it's not that easy. And, entrepreneurship is hard.
Yes.
It's not an easy path to walk at times. But kind of being able to sort of go back to your mission and your why is incredibly important.
There's a book that I'm reading. I should know the name of it, and I just can't recall it right now, but it's all about how women are not considered in healthcare, in all the health studies and all the medicine. I mean, things are getting better now, but all of the medicines that were developed were not developed with women in mind, right? They just thought we were smaller men. And so it's so incredible to see some of these new technology solutions that are helping people to almost assess themselves, right? So different types of at-home testing that you can do that measure your hormones or the vitamins that you're lacking or something like that, because we really are different creatures and our hormones affect us. So we're not the same all the time. We are constantly changing. And so whatever medicines we are taking is affected by where we are in our cycles. And that is something that wasn't recognized. It wasn't taken into consideration in all these studies. So Femtech Insider is the goal of it to kind of bring awareness to all of these different issues that women face, and then kind of talk about some of the existing innovations and solutions.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that question.
Oh, I was just curious with Femtech Insider if the mission or the goal of the newsletter is to bring awareness to not only the issues that exist, but also the innovations and solutions. And then I'm sure that there's plenty of people that are interested in funding those types of innovations. So can you talk a little bit about the whole ecosystem that sort of is interested in the newsletter?
Yeah, of course. So again, we started as a newsletter and then sort of, expanded from there. And, in the beginning, what I did actually, I would just collect coverage from across the internet and just, it was literally a collection of links that we sent out on a weekly basis. Then, we quickly gained traction, specifically in the investment community that was already interested in these spaces. So with a bunch of women's health funds, Startups, obviously, in that space started to pay attention to the work that we were doing. And what started happening was that I was starting to get emails from our founders that are like, look, other tech publications won't write about us because we speak about periods of menstruation. Can you publish our press release? And, I would tell them, we're just a newsletter, we don't really do editorial. Yeah. And so then I'm like, oh, well, maybe we should be doing editorial, right? And so we've kind of grown an editorial team sort of on the back of that newsletter and on the back of that audience that is very interested in that space and, really interested in making a difference in that space. And so, yeah, it's really, startups get their first publicity from us. We have lots of investors on our mailing list very often. So we talk about launches, we talk about investments, we talk about acquisitions. We also talk about, founder journeys. And, a lot of founders in our space are very mission driven and are really solving the problems that they themselves had and, the solutions that they're building to address the many issues in the women's health space. And so, yeah, I think like what we've been able to do is really, help investors find investments in great companies to invest in and great companies that don't only bring financial returns, but also have amazing, have great impact on the world that we live in. And yeah, again, helping, founders, lots of female entrepreneurs in our space to, kind of connect with investors. We're really read across the sort of healthcare innovation ecosystem. Obviously, the VC and startup community is quite interested in what we do, but it's also, sort of end consumers that are just interested in sort of women's health with a little bit of a innovation angle. Lots of physicians read us, and also a bunch of our friends in the more corporate world, sort of in the pharma world, insurance, and sort of the personal hygiene area. Like anybody that's like, I don't know, the Henkels, the Johnson & Johnsons of the world. So that's kind of our readership. So we really kind of speak to anyone that's really interested in making a difference for women on a global level.
Wow. I mean, I have two sort of questions. First is I'll keep on the track of Femtech Insider, but I do want to almost leverage what you've done and maybe give advice to other people who are looking to sort of do something like this. So we'll get to that in a second. But I'm also wondering, it just seems to me that with what you're doing, there are so many other things that can come from there, like, conferences and events, bringing people together. So I guess it's a two-part question, and then we'll go on to the third. First is, where is Femtech Insider going, right? Where is it expanding? And then the other thing that I'm curious about, this maybe speaks a little bit to, if someone else is trying to do something like this, what's the business model?
So in many ways, we're a very, very traditional media company. So, we do advertising in all sorts of shapes and forms, starting with, just like ads on the website, to sponsorships of our newsletters, to guest posts. So stuff, that you will see across the media world to a certain extent. We also do have a premium membership. We have lots of investors in that, lots of, again, people in corporate innovation departments that are interested in, sort of our view of the space and the trends, the new startups that we're seeing. So it's really, membership is another big income stream for us. I did start in the very beginning also to do a little bit of consulting. So I'm trying to do less of that and really, have the platform do money. So, in the beginning, also maybe as advice for somebody that's looking to start something similar, kind of have that additional income stream that's maybe a little bit platform independent, because that allows you to really innovate and, kind of try new things. And I will be very honest, when I started Femtech Insider, I had no idea how to monetize this thing, right?
Yeah.
I was just so driven by this belief that a platform like this needed to exist. And then I just failed forward, basically. So, in many ways, this is kind of where we're at the moment. We do run our own events specifically for our so-called inner circle audience. So that's our membership community. They're smaller, they're a little bit more analytical. So I always like to say our general free coverage, so to say, is kind of this is what happened. And then in our premium membership, we like to go a little bit more into detail and talk about why this matters and why the investment community, why the innovation community should care about these news or these developments. And yeah, we are definitely also exploring more options. Again, I've been running it for a few years now. And sort of it's kind of at a point now where we're obviously thinking about scaling and which direction to take it into. We are exploring events, as you mentioned, more in a different format, virtually, potentially in person.
Yeah.
And we're also looking at potentially maybe doing a little bit more for consumers, that might be interested in the women's health space. Because right now we're really a B2B publication at its core, but we are read by a lot of women that are curious about this space and curious about the founders in our space and the products that come out of our space that, they might be able to use. So, there's lots of opportunities to sort of expand and sort of innovate. Yeah, it never gets boring in media. I'm sure you know this as well. But that's kind of what we're exploring at the moment.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I could definitely see this even expanding into some type of your own fund, right? Where you're bringing together investors and investments, especially because you are the authority, right? And you know where to find people. And now they are coming to you. I imagine that you don't have to do a ton of awareness building because there's not a lot of people that are playing in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been lucky to have a little bit of experience on the VC side. So I've been invited to sit on the advisory board for a bunch of VC funds and also conferences in the women's health space. So obviously that's a great learning opportunity for me. And I mean, who knows? Obviously I have a lot to learn in that space. So I don't think that's like next 12-month goal, but who knows what the future brings. So definitely you are absolutely right. We see a lot of startups very early because we are a media and not a VC fund. And, we're women-owned, women-run. I'm, just the founder, just like another founder. So we're not as threatening as a VC sometimes. So people tend to rather speak to me early than to a VC. It's always a little bit scary and there's much more of a power difference. So we see a lot of these startups in their very, very early stages. And obviously that's super valuable to a lot of people that are looking to invest in this space.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And you mentioned the membership, which I think is fascinating. Also, it seems to me that more and more people are talking about building community, right? And so the community has all of these different aspects. And, women are 51% of the world's population. Why is it that we aren't more focused on this? Especially, this is our health, right? This is our longevity. This is our, how we can live our lives to the fullest and get the information that we need. So I can really see this being keeping both, but having a consumer facing aspect to this because like here you were like someone who was very educated about health and wellness, and yet you had a condition that people who you relied on, your doctors and your healthcare providers, they weren't able to spot this. You found this out on your own. And I think that hopefully the industry is moving more and more so that people don't have to experience that. But women do need to educate ourselves from when we're young about the potential, ailments or conditions that might affect us, because the earlier that we can address these things, the more vibrant lives that we can lead.
Absolutely. And, I talk about this so much, like we definitely need to reinvent sex ed because all we talk about is how to not get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much more to this, like at a certain point in your life, it might be a little bit more difficult to get pregnant. So, we're sort of perpetuating a myth that, it just happens like that, which may be true for some people, of course. But, given like the state of fertility in the world, there's a lot of issues with not being able to conceive too. But beyond that, it's also, it should be more like body literacy even than, sex ed. And, that it should be a lot broader than just, limiting it to, like how not to get pregnant or how to practice safe sex. So it's like kind of, I 100% agree. I would hope that, we could teach these things at a much earlier age, not just to, young women, but also young men, or, it's incredible.
Exactly.
Because had I known earlier that I was at risk for having PCOS, like, I could have gotten the help I needed earlier. I could have found happiness earlier and, sort of, I wouldn't have dealt with a lot of the issues that I dealt with in my 20s. So yeah, I 100% agree. Like we just need better education across the board on a lot of these issues. Yeah, it's unfortunately, even still today, I feel women's health is very, very stigmatized. Like many topics we still don't feel comfortable speaking about. And very honestly, I was also not always this open about talking about, having PCOS and all the little bit like, symptoms that you're struggling with. And I was like, oh my God, somebody's going to Google me and somebody's going to Google me and I'm going to be this PCOS girl forever. And that's all people are going to know about me. And I was like, what is this going to mean for my dating life? I don't know. So it was kind of, you ask yourself all these questions because if the many taboo topics that are still exist in the women's health space. So we just need to talk more openly about these issues. And, I think it is getting better. I think we specifically see it in the menopause space. Most celebrities are speaking up and, sharing their experiences going through menopause. And I think this is really helping to drive the conversation forward. I wish we would have similar examples for other conditions as well. So, the
agreed
destigmatization continues, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, it's really sad that we're socialized as women to put forth this, perfect facade and not talk about some of our health issues. And like you're saying, like, if someone Googles you and they find that you have a health issue, it's like, oh, you're not like a viable mate then, which is like awful, right? And I thought actually where you were going is that like even an employer, right? Or if they see that, oh, you might have some type of, health condition that's going to, make you not as productive. It's so unfortunate that that's how society views people, number one, as productivity machines, but number two, like women, on top of being a productivity machine, you also have to be perfect in every way in order for, people to value you. And that's really sad. And I'm like disgusted by all of that. But I do think that the more conversations that we have like this, the more that people will start to think about it and reject it, right? Like, no, I'm going to talk about this because I'm not the only one. And you do still have to earn a living and, date and all of that kind of stuff. And we're all imperfect in so many different ways. Like, why is this one thing the negative aspect? So I really love the work that you're doing. And I was actually wondering, let's go to, if someone does have an idea, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be in the healthcare space and the technology space, but let's say that they're super knowledgeable or passionate about a certain topical area that is niche, and they do see that there's some type of opportunity there. What type of advice, now looking back on your 4 years, what type of advice would you give to a woman that wants to start some type of a information property?
I think the first advice I would have is really focus on building your audience. And, sort of the audience is kind of your testing ground to a certain extent, right? I think I mentioned it earlier. I kind of failed forward in the journey of building Femtech Insider. So what really helped me was, kind of having I literally started with an audience of 2, and both of these people were related to me. So, I really started knowing nobody in that space. So, it was really about networking, reaching out to people, and kind of just overcoming imposter syndrome to a certain extent. And, being very honest that, I'm learning and I want to create something to serve this space. And you will find there are a lot of people that are very happy to support you and just, get on the phone with you. I think launch fast and build an audience would be my 2 biggest pieces of advice. I think we sometimes get lost in wanting to make everything perfect and, sort of waiting around and then waiting another month. And so the way I actually launched Femtech Insider, I'd had the idea for a few months, and I think I bought the domain in April 2019, and then we launched in October 19. And I actually started it as part of, so there's an organization called Women Make, and it's kind of a creator organization. And so they, I don't know whether they still do it, but in 2019, they hosted a sort of 1 month long hackathon where everybody who participated was challenged to launch something within a month. And so I was like, heck, I want to participate. I'll just do it and give it a go and see how far I get. And so now, it's kind of this side project that took over my life. Obviously, that's all I do now. And that's how I got into this. Launch something. Don't listen to the naysayers. I heard from so many people in the beginning, oh yeah, a women's magazine and who actually still reads blogs today. And I'm like, I just really followed my vision and, I kind of trusted my gut to a certain extent. And again, I launched very quickly, validated quite early. We got traction within my chosen audience quite early on in the journey. So again, my advice would be really, launch early. And we launched very, very quickly in this month. And so that really, we had something out there. This allowed me to really validate the idea in this audience that I wanted to reach. We started to talk to a lot of people, or I started to talk to, I always say we, in the beginning it was really just me. I started to speak to a lot of people in that, I wanted to reach and found support, built in public from the very beginning. So I didn't do any stealth mode building, any of this kind. So we were out there from the very, very beginning. And so to summarize, I think my advice would be know your audience, reach out to them, learn from them, launch quickly. And really, if you're building a media property, distribution and your reach is key.
Is key. Yeah. No, I love that. When you say you built some traction early on, was that just getting positive feedback from the people that were reading? They were opening it, they were responding to you. What did that actually practically look like?
So in the beginning, I reached out to a lot of people in our space, and I hacked the system a little bit. So again, it was a blog, but at the core was really the newsletter. But what we did is I would do interviews with a lot of the women that were active in the space and, that I could find in different communities or also on LinkedIn. And so, we will publish interviews with not just women, but also just generally, people that were active in the women's health innovation space at the time. And so that kind of, helped us because they would reshare that they were on our blog. And then, that kind of got us into the space. And I will publish in different groups, in different like tech, women in tech networks that I was launching this. So I spoke quite a bit about what I was doing and what I was building. And so that kind of, started to build an audience. And then obviously, what I looked at was open rates in the beginning, are people actually consistently opening what we're sending them? Are they clicking on things? Are they actually interested? So, that was really kind of also guided our content strategy to a certain extent. Like, what did the people that were receiving our newsletter or chose to, allow us into their inbox actually interested in? And so, that kind of really helped me to build upon that and, I almost feel like I co-created the whole thing with our audience the entire way. And so I think that's what it looked like for me. And obviously, it also helps to sometimes hear, hey, this is good. I enjoy getting this newsletter and I love this and keep going. Sort of the kind of the qualitative feedback obviously helps a lot too, especially in the very beginning when it sometimes feels, many people that, are in the media space and are starting something new will maybe resonate with this, like kind of, you're just speaking to a silent room almost. So whenever somebody then provides feedback, it's actually quite exciting. But just overcome it. Speak from the very beginning about what you're building, find your allies, find your community. And that definitely helped me.
I think this is such incredible advice because it's not overcomplicated, yet it is something that I think that people don't take the time to do. They have this feeling that they do need to be perfect in some way, or that they need to know it all in order for them to, gain traction and to build. But it's almost, I wouldn't use the word humbling. It's all that is coming to my mind right now. But, like humbling yourself enough to say like, hey, my audience and the people that I'm actually trying to serve, I need to know what they want. And so it's in your best interest to actually talk to them because you almost don't want to be the expert, right? Not in the beginning, at least. You want to be a sponge so that you can co-create, like you said, with them. And I think that that applies in media. That also applies in any type of service that you're trying to launch, right? And it certainly applies to any type of product that you want to launch as well. But I think what happens is we do, especially as women, like number one, imposter syndrome drives this perfectionism, which is like so stupid. And I like how you were, even though you were probably nervous, you said, this is something that I'm passionate about, and this is how I'm going to move forward. And I think a lot of people can take away these action steps really in order to launch. And then I guess I would even say, 4 years in, are you continuing to sort of follow this process where you're always talking to your customers?
100%. Like I'm on the phone with people that read us all the time, and obviously we get a lot of feedback. Also, fortunately, our mailing list is a little bit bigger than 2 people by now. So we do get feedback on the work that we do quite a bit. And so one thing I will also say is, and I followed this from the very beginning, I think I may have watched the Gary Vee video in the very beginning that talked about that. So I just wanted to mention it because it was so valuable for me. It was like focus on documenting and not creating. So in the beginning, again, as you said, I definitely was not an expert. And, still like today, I have so much to learn about women's health. I have so much to learn about women's health innovation. And a lot of people look at me as the founder of Femtech Insider and they're like, oh, she's a Femtech expert. I'm not. I'm a learner every day. I learn new things. I'm like a lifelong intern in this space. This is kind of how I feel. But it was really in the very beginning, I was focused on documenting what I was learning and sharing that with other people. And, that's to a certain extent, I still do that today. And as a publication, that's still what we do. I think the moment have I learned a lot about the femtech ecosystem, about women's health, about, the VC and startup world, about about entrepreneurship? Oh, yes. Like I'm definitely a better founder and probably someone with more expertise in this spaces than I was, 4 years ago. But, am I perfect? Oh, hell no. Yeah. And, I would really encourage everybody, don't, if there's something you feel passionate about, just go and do it, try it. And, just take the leap and, you might end up with a business 4 years later. But so really document, not don't create. I think that was so, empowering to me to a certain extent also, because it almost gave me permission to, not be an expert and still talk about something that I felt passionate about.
Yeah, and not get in your own way. I love that quote. We'll look and find that actual Gary Vee quote and include that in the show notes, because that is very inspirational. So how can people, sign up for the newsletter if they're interested in any way? What can they do? Yeah,
so if you're passionate about women's health innovation, I just would like to learn more, you can just visit us at femtechinsider.com. So we publish on an ongoing basis. Femtechinsider.com/newsletter is where our newsletter is at, but you can probably find it quite easily. And that's a great place to start if you want to learn more about just Femtech or the women's health innovation ecosystem, and also our work at Femtech Insider.
Amazing. And if people want to connect with you, where can they do that?
So I have a website, kathrinfolkendt.com. I think you probably want to include that in the show notes because my name is a little bit difficult to spell. And I also have a newsletter that's going out on a somewhat irregular basis where I talk a little bit more about kind of, innovation in media, what I'm learning about entrepreneurship, also women's health, of course, because that's an area I'm quite passionate about. I started working on a book about PCOS and sort of my PCOS journey. So anything that's not specifically women's health innovation news, head on over to my personal website where it's a little bit more about like business, entrepreneurship, media, this kind of stuff.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to check that out myself too, because this is definitely an area that the audience of Sugar Coated is super interested in. We're always trying to learn how to sort of improve our entrepreneurial skills so that we can break through the barriers on the entrepreneurship side, right? Getting our businesses past $1 million. That is something that we really need to learn how to do together so that we can, all boats can rise, all women's boats can rise. So Kathrin, I just want to say thank you so much for spending time time with me today and sharing all of your wisdom. I hope everybody signs up for Femtech Insider because especially the sugar-coated audience, we are all women and we are all at some point going to have healthcare issues, whether it's us or someone who's close to us. And the more that we know and the more that we can educate ourselves and the more that we understand what this whole ecosystem is all about, the more empowered that we can be. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I'm just really happy that you were able to come on Sugar Coated and share all your wisdom with us today.
It's been a blast. Thank you so much for having me, Adrian. It was amazing.
Thank you, Kathrin.
Thank you.
This is the She Leads Podcast Network.